Let's talk, Saints fans. I want to discuss whether or not it makes sense for New Orleans to trade away their kicker, Wil Lutz, because we have an interesting report coming in, an interesting idea from a guy by the name of Zac Stevens over at DNVR Broncos, and he's discussing the idea of a trade for Wil Lutz to reunite with Sean Payton over in Denver. Zac Stevens saying there's buzz from Peter King and Jeff Duncan that the Broncos could trade for kicker Wil Lutz from the Saints. Would make a lot of sense if the Broncos want a different option other than Brett Maher. Saints fans, we know that Brett Maher, not ideal. So Sean Payton signed Lutz back in 2016 in New Orleans and kicked there the rest of Sean's time in New Orleans. And as for what Wil Lutz has done in his career, 84.6% field goal success rate. In terms of extra points, 97.6. Last season, he actually had his long of 60. Would have been 61 had he made that game-winning field goal against the Vikings in Week 4 in London. Would have been great, but he nailed a 60-yarder in that game. And why we're discussing Denver? Because Sean Payton is turning it into the Denver Saints. Payton currently has 8 former players that he coached in New Orleans on the Broncos' current roster. And as to why it makes sense for the kicker position, Brett Maher, like Zac Stevens was saying, is the current kicking option for Denver. Personally, I don't blame Denver for wanting somebody different. I would want a different kicker too. Y'all remember when Brett Maher filled in for Wil Lutz in 2021 after Wil Lutz was dealing with those injuries? It was not good. So I don't blame him whatsoever. Get him on out of here. Get Brett Maher on out of here. So that's why we're talking Wil Lutz. And I'm going to discuss a little bit more about this here in just a second. But let me know, would you trade for Wil Lutz, or would you trade away Wil Lutz, Type T for trade, type P for pass. This will be the YouTube pin comment. So if you get hit with the YouTube ad break, take advantage of it. Scroll on down. You have about 6, 7, 8 seconds to let us know your thoughts and share it down below. All right, so I just want to talk about why I believe this is a good problem to have. And before we get into that, I think that the Saints have a lot of fun things around this young guy, Blake Grupe. He is a talented player, former Notre Dame Fighting Irish. He kicked at Arkansas State as well, so shout out to the all-natural state. But I think this is a good problem for the Saints to have. And we're going to get to see Blake Grupe and Wil Lutz kick off, continue this kicker battle at the NFL Preseason Week 3 matchup against the Houston Texans, which we will be live for 30 minutes ahead of kickoff. We're going to be having a super chat battle between me and my boy Jeremy Chuggs over at our Houston Texans channel by Chat Sports. We're going to be having all sorts of fun giveaways, like battles, sub battles. It's going to be an awesome atmosphere, the best atmosphere to be in, unless you're at the Caesars Superdome. So subscribe today for Saints Dubs, Who Dat Nation. Turn on your notifications. That way you don't miss any content, and that way you don't miss when we go live for kickoff. So let's get into the preseason stats for Wil Lutz versus Blake Grupe. Lutz, he is 4 for 4 in terms of field goals, and in extra points, he's 2 for 2 with a long of 51, which we saw this past week. Blake Grupe, 3 for 3, 1 for 1 on extra point, and he had a long of 37. And the reports coming out of training camp from everyone out there, everyone out at the Ochsner practice facility in New Orleans, reports are saying that both kickers look tremendous at camp. So this is why I think this is a good problem. Either way, it feels like it's a win for the Saints. And really it's going to be which one doesn't make a mistake more consistently. I think that Wil Lutz, he's a great kicker. He's been around the team for a long time. He is definitely clutch. But Blake Grupe's young. He's shown a lot of, good things so far. And I think that it might be at some point time to move on. So let me know, Saints fans, pick a kicker for me. Type WL for Wil Lutz. Type BG for Blake Grupe. And if you say, I just want to keep both, keep them on the practice squad, keep both on the roster, why not? Figure it out, Dennis Allen. I want both kickers. Type K in the comment section. And as for my take, clutch Lutz, Big Nuts Lutz. You know what we all call him here. He is a great kicker, but he is coming off the worst year of his career. We had a 74.2 completion percentage in terms of the field goals, or kick percentage, excuse me. So my question is, at what point do you move on? At what point is, hey, the tenure was great, he was good, but let's go and find somebody young and somebody fresh to get this special teams unit going. And also, reports from training camp, both look really good in terms of kickoffs. They can both kick the ball accurately and deeply. So I really do think it's just going to come down to this preseason Week 3 matchup against the Texans to see who wins that battle. So next we're going to get into a potential Jameis Winston trade, because Bleacher Report put out an interesting article that I got into and I wanted to give my thoughts on. But before we get to that, we got some sideline hats for sale. And let me tell you, I saw MT rocking one of these, and boy, did he look good. And if you want to look good too, use this link down below, chatsports.com/Saints hat. You can find that link in the comment section and in the description of this video. I ordered this hat. I'm about to go out of town on a bachelor party out in Arizona, and you can bet your butt I'm going to be rocking this on the golf course. So get geared up just like I did, chatsports.com/Saints hat. All right, let's talk about trading J-Bo. And like I said just a minute ago, Bleacher Report listed Jameis Winston as a player that should be put on the trade block. And as for why we're talking about this, as for to why Jameis could be on the move, the Saints signed quarterback Derek Carr in free agency to be quarterback one. But you at home knew that unless you've been living under a rock. Jake Haener, he has been lighting it up in the preseason. He's looked good. And I'm going to get into an evaluation on Jake Haener here in a second. And in terms of the financials, in terms of the money, y'all know how it is in New Orleans. We kick the can and as far down the street as you possibly can, but you got to save some money here and there. So the Saints would save about $7.3 million in 2024 dead cap space if traded. And in terms of the preseason production, you can see how these two quarterbacks line up against each other. And it's actually pretty funny how similar they've looked. 24 of 34 as compared to 21 of 34. Winston has 261 yards. Haener has 223. Both have a touchdown. Haener's thrown an interception, and the yards per game, 130.5 to 111.5. And here's a few things out of, the possible endless list of what I like about Jake Haener. His improvisations and quick decision-making are very, very impressive, especially for a guy this young in his NFL career. He is tough as nails. Fresno State friends, they know exactly what we saw. We even saw this past preseason matchup against the Chargers where he left the field to go get tested for concussion protocol, came back on the field, and still managed to play well. He has a really nice zip on his ball. He didn't have to force too many passes so far, and those are things that I'm liking as well. He's an accurate passer on multiple levels. He can hit the deep ball. He can hit the intermediate. He can hit a screen or a flat or even something short over the middle. And shout out to Jontre Kirkland for that 55-yard reception in Haener's first pass in preseason week 2. I loved seeing that. He also has a really nice pocket feel, and if the pocket does collapse, you can tell he has a plan. He keeps his composure. He doesn't let the lights, being very bright, get to his head. He doesn't let the moment take him off of his game. And he has a short memory. He can bounce back quick. If you remember in preseason week 1, struggled a little bit early on, but then put together that game-winning drive. And then on top of that, in preseason week 2, he threw that pick, bounced back, and still managed to play well. And you can tell there's already trust built between him and his wide receivers, especially Shaq Davis. I want to give a special shout-out to the catch where Jake Haener, he threw it up a little bit high for Davis, but he knew Davis could go up there and get the ball, had to put it on a nice little arch, and had to put some nice levels on it in order to go and climb the ladder to catch that ball. Hey, I love Jake Haener, and I'm a big fan of him. But let's get back to Jameis Winston, because I think that there's 4, maybe 5 destinations that he could end up at. The Las Vegas Raiders, they're rolling with Jimmy Garoppolo as their starting quarterback, who is not better than Derek Carr. And they also have Aiden O'Connell as their backup option. So if they don't like what they see out of Aiden O'Connell midway through the season, Jimmy G gets hurt like he always does, maybe a Winston trade makes sense. Green Bay Packers, do they like Jordan Love? I don't know. Is he going to be that great? I don't really know. The Cincinnati Bengals, they had Brandon Allen as their backup quarterback. but he's over in San Francisco now. So I think that Joe Burrow needs a quality backup because that's a team that can win now. And the Dallas Cowboys, you're really telling me that if you're America's team, you'd rather roll with Will Grier or Cooper Rush? No, no, not at all. And in terms of the honorable mention, though, just like we said earlier, the Denver Broncos. And why? Because Sean Payton. Sean Payton loves his New Orleans Saints players. Like I said earlier at the beginning of the show, there are 8 players currently on the roster in Denver that Sean Payton coached in New Orleans. So I think that it also makes some sense because Jarrett Stidham is the backup quarterback. Russell Wilson, he is your starting quarterback in Denver. Maybe you go and trade a guy for a guy like Jameis Winston if Russell Wilson or Jarrett Stidham faces an injury. So sound off for me, Saints fans. Should New Orleans trade away Jameis? Type Y for yes, type in for no. Let me know down in the comments section. And my final thoughts, my take that I'm going to give, if somebody wants to overpay for Winston, why not? Like if you want to trade away like a 6th, 5th round pick, fine, whatever. But otherwise, I'm keeping him. We all know that the injury bug loves to live in New Orleans. We all know that Saints quarterbacks have struggled with injuries these past few years. Jameis being one of those guys struggling, but he's a QB2 now, so I want to see how he can fill in this roster as well as be a good locker room asset because he's still a good culture guy. Like, come on. You can't disagree with that whatsoever. But Saints fans, thank you guys for tuning in today's show, no matter where you are or how you're watching. We always appreciate you at home for making us a part of your day. For me, for my boy producer Seeps, y'all take it easy. Y'all stay golden. We'll see you next time.